Can you go to the zoo and walk up to the pandas, the penguins, the hummingbirds? Are you still having nightmares about Fred the medic? Or about Bert? Bert and your mum? Bert and your mum eating? Bert and your mum eating with a bard? This obsession over ranking factors and chasing every Google algorithm update, well, it's just not good for your stress levels. So today, we're going to talk about how to get off the ranking factor roller coaster by acknowledging 3 evident truths. Firstly, Google is not a search engine. Secondly, these traditional SEO metrics, such as rank and sessions, are really not that actionable. And thirdly, that your job is not to optimize a website. We'll go through each of these truths today, starting with why Google is not a search engine. Now, I'm a millennial, specifically an elder millennial, so I can tell you tales of MySpace, of the landline, of a portable CD player stuck in your back pocket. And when I think of the word search engine, this is what I see in my mind's eye. But for the Gen Zs in the audience, maybe you think of this or of this. And if you do not know what these 2 platforms are, hello, boomer. The likes of TikTok and Instagram are a significant threat to Google, with almost 40% of young people using social networks as search engines in specific circumstances. Gen Z just doesn't have the same mindset and expectations that Google is accustomed to. Not only because they prefer snackable content over a wall of text of Google search results, but because they crave authenticity and transparency. They'd rather discover a new restaurant through a TikTok from their favorite creator than they would clicking through page after page of Google search results. As a social network, it's just more trustworthy. They can see the person, they can see how they react to the food, they can see the ambiance. Even with a long-form critic's review, you're not going to get that same bite-sized, easy to understand, this is what I'm getting myself into. What's more, content creators are restricted to 60 seconds or to a limited number of characters, so social posts get straight to the point, meaning the social content can return more relevant results in a shorter period of time. And this seems to me to be a far superior experience than wading through page after page of bloated SEO content, which is optimized for rankings rather than the reader. And I'm not interested in seeing site after site regurgitating the same banal information or promoting themselves as trustworthy places, but it's just filled with affiliate links. I want to see original expert perspective. But it technically matches the keyword, but it's not actually valuable content, is exploding. Previously, you had to pay someone a $5 in order to get your SEO text, but now you can just have it in 5 minutes with generative AI, and this is going to further degrade the usefulness of the traditional search results. And Google's not blind to any of this. For the first time in over a decade, there is a significant threat to Google's market dominance. And they're not just sitting there resting on their laurels. 4 years ago, they committed to fundamental shifts in the way that they display their services. So we're moving away from answers to journeys, from queries to queryless, and from text towards visuals. And they delivered on all of these promises. SERPs moved away from being full of links towards more engaging and interactive experiences, showing more visual results, helping the users refine their queries, providing snippet-style information, aggregating content, and by doing so, often putting competitors side by side. And the SEO community loves to talk about new rich snippets, new featured snippets, all of these new things that are happening in the SERPs. But we are strangely silent on the momentous shifts that have made Google immensely powerful beyond the bounds of the search results. For a start, why aren't we talking more about how Google is one of the biggest social networks in the world, having all of the functionality of their key competitors, albeit in a more dispersed manner? So, of course, video is covered. Google has YouTube, but they've been promoting really heavily on YouTube Shorts and using the SERP results to do it so that they can compete with TikToks and Reels. They've obviously got live video and live blogging covered. They've got visual search capabilities. They've got stories on YouTube and the open web. And they've got linkable posts in Google Business Profiles. But the innovation that pushed Google to a whole new level as a social network was understanding that businesses are busy. I don't want to have to go off and create a linkable post for all of my articles and all of my products and all of my listings and all of my deep content. So Google said, I'll do it for you. As soon as I crawl a web page, I can turn that content into a card. And these cards are going to be shown across the various Google feeds. And just like any other social network, these cards are going into personalized feeds. They are going to proactively match them to the interests of the user, just like they do with Google Discover, which is now the 5th highest ranked social network in terms of traffic in the world. So it beats out Snapchat, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Twitter. But there's more at stake here. Because unlike most social media platforms, Google's not just one destination. These social stylings of feeds and followings impact many of their surfaces. So I can follow an entity in Universal Search by clicking the bell icon in the Knowledge panel. I can follow people or select businesses in Google Maps by clicking the Follow button to be able to see those posts in the Updates tab. I can follow publishers in Google News by starring a source, and then I'm going to see all of their posts in the Following tab. But the most powerful of this follow functionality is the Chrome browser follow button. This allows your content to be shown on the Google homepage in the Following tab. And now the obvious use case here is to create a feed of all of your articles, but think differently. If I'm an e-commerce shop, then I can put in all of my featured products. If I am a jobs portal, I can put in my top listings. If I'm a restaurant, I could include my menu's daily specials, and all of this content is guaranteed to show on the Google homepage, if only for a limited period of time. And this hidden in plain sight power of Google is not only as a social network. Google is also one of the biggest e-commerce players in the world, but similar to Amazon, eBay, and Etsy, it replaces the need for the user to visit the e-commerce website in order to buy products. And these Google shopping experiences can be seamlessly accessed. Simply point Google Lens at an item of interest in the real world to find where to buy that item online with Google. It means that storefronts, magazines, physical products, all of these, everything that you can take a picture of, becomes a potential entry point for a shopping journey. And the use of shoppable images also works online. So you can select specific elements of an image to trigger related results. This means that you can dive into images, making lifestyle catalogs, snaps of celebrities, your travel photos. All of these are now dynamic and actionable. And Google's not shy about promoting these features, showing shop for products in your screenshots, call to action front and center on the Google homepage. So a habit is formed to shop with Google. And users no longer need to search for shopping-related terms. So that #1 ranking that you strive for in search is less valuable. Not that it was a true #1 ranking anyway, as Google takes position 0 with their shoppable products. And when I click into one of these shoppable products, I'm met with advanced filters and price comparison, user reviews, related items. So I have all of the information that I need in order to make an informed purchasing decision. And if I don't find the product that I want, well, that's okay. I can click on those related items, or I can just swipe right. And that's going to give me endless options of related content. And if this doesn't convince the user to buy on Google, well, it certainly is influencing my brand preference and my brand awareness. And all of this is happening before the user sees result position 1, which is down below the fold. And right after it, Google's going to show you how to refine your query with a people also ask feature. And then there's only one more result before the user is directed away with a shop the look block. So in modern SERPs, you're not competing against your competitors for a top 10 placement. You're competing against Google, who dominates these SERPs. And frequently, you're not going to be able to get above the fold unless you're included in these rich results. And failing that, you have to be in position 1 or position 2, or you may as well just not be on the page. But it's not just e-commerce websites which are being disrupted. This insertion of itself between the user and the brand is also happening in the local directory space. So Google is just dwarfing the competition for many, many businesses. What it is now is you'll get more conversions from your Google My Business profile than you're going to get from actually having a website. Because a habit has been formed to search for local businesses in Google Maps. And so users no longer search with universal search for local directory related terms. So that #1 ranking you strive for is less valuable. Not that it was a true #1 ranking anyway, as Google dominates the local SERPs. And of course, there are industries where Google can't put itself between the user and the brand and satisfy all of those requirements. But this does not stop them encroaching deeper down the conversion funnel with more robust ecosystem experiences that aggregate content. And by doing so, they replace the value of that industry's home pages and category pages. As an example, let's take a look at what they're doing in the news space, where they are doing exactly that, replacing home pages and category pages. Why would I, an avid newsreader, want to land here or here or here, here or here or here, when I can have a better experience here, where I have personalized news from trusted publishers aggregated into full coverage reports with no intrusive ads. And so a habit is formed to browse the daily headlines on Google News. And users no longer need to search for news-related terms. And that #1 ranking is less valuable. Not that it was a true #1 ranking anyway, as Google takes position 0 with their top stories carousel, as well as dominates most of the rest of the page. And Google is taking over in the travel space, replicating the functionalities of travel sites' homepages and category pages, while at the same time reducing traffic to such pages because Google dominates the SERPs. And Google's doing similar things in the careers space, replicating the key functionality of job sites' homepages and category pages, while reducing traffic to such pages because Google dominates the SERPs. And with Google stepping up its game as a personal assistant that is empowered to make opinionated recommendations, no industry is safe. Already, organic results for informational queries are being pushed below the fold by the rich results and delivered via voice, where there is only one end result. And we know that Google is joining the generative AI game with Bard, which will be shortly added to search. And while we don't know what the future of AI will bring, I can guarantee you it will not be clicks on blue links in universal search. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So yes, Google is the dominant player in search. But you have to stop thinking of Google as a search engine. Universal search is a single product, and one of which is becoming increasingly less important because Google is set on creating ecosystem experiences that capture and keep the user in their walled garden longer. And this changes the conversion path. No longer is the primary flow that the user conducts a keyword search, lands on a category page, and then browses deep page content from there. More often than not, Google is satisfying those needs before the user needs to search. And if the user does search, then they're often immediately engulfed in an ecosystem experience where Google is acting as the category page, aggregating and displaying offers from various brands in order to either drop the user off right at the point of conversion or convert the user themselves. And on the surface, this seems like pretty bad news for us marketers. And maybe for those of you who are up in arms about zero-click search results, your gut reaction is to fight, to stand up to Google, crying out, "You shall not index," and have your David and Goliath moment. But the secret is, it's not about you. Google doesn't want to fight you. Google's fighting the other Goliaths. Google's fighting Meta's marketplace. Google's fighting TikTok. Google's fighting Amazon Shopping. Google's fighting Microsoft on weekends just to keep its fitness up. It doesn't matter to them whether you allow your content to be indexed or not. It makes no difference to their plans. Google will continue to transition from being a search engine to a surface ecosystem who is focused on anticipating and satisfying users' needs before they need to search. And if you refuse to give up control of your content, your ability to reach and engage your target audience will be usurped by a competitor who will. You need to be where your audience is in order to enter their consideration set. And your audience will be on Google surfaces. So the alternative is that we optimize for these ecosystem experiences, which does present a real threat. It means we're going to be even more dependent on and vulnerable to the actions of Google. But ignoring Google doesn't make it go away. Whether you choose to integrate with these ecosystem experiences or not, does not stop them existing and does not stop them impacting your brand. We have to acknowledge that as content creators, we've lost control of distribution to Google. And we can't win it back by building better websites. Google has deep roots in technology. They have superior aggregation capabilities. They have a better knowledge of the user. So this requires us as brands to refocus on the true value that we provide. A page on your website was never the product of your business. It is not in and of itself valuable to users. The product of your business is your content, whether that's words in an article, the story of a video, or a curated product or service offering. And with this understanding, you can partner with Google and use it to grow visibility and build your brand, which when done well will ultimately lead to more revenue, and that is why you made the content in the first place, after all. And maybe you're thinking, well, how do I measure this? Should I measure this in impressions, in organic sessions, in conversions? Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but the era of meticulously tracked conversion paths has already come to an end. There's GDPR, we've got cookie consent pop-ups, there's the blocking of third-party cookies by many browsers, and shortly Google Chrome will be included in that list. We've got the limiting of first-party cookies by many brands because they're afraid of what's going to happen from a legal perspective if they keep those cookies too long. We've also got Google coming out very recently and saying, hey, on Google Ads and Google Analytics, we are only going to allow you to do last-click attribution. And there's more of this to come. Privacy is not going away. It's only going to further degrade your ability to identify an individual user. And all of this means that the data offered by Google can still be used to show some trends, but it should not be treated as a source of truth. And many marketers are coming to the realization that we could never actually track the conversion funnel in the first place. We just lied to ourselves thinking that we can. Take Google Search Console. Now, there's no doubt that this is now, and probably always will be, an extremely valuable diagnostic tool. But you cannot use this as a detailed reporting tool. First and foremost, because it's missing large swaths of the Google ecosystem. Because, sure, you can break down search type, but where is maps? Where is travel? Where is jobs? News is in there twice. What can you really do with SERP reporting that has, well, all of the features you don't care about and very few of the ones that you do? And what can you do with a Discover report that is limited to 1,000 rows? But most importantly, Google Search Console is often used as a rank tracking tool. And reporting on average position ranking is not only meaningless, but in my opinion, this is actively harmful to your performance as marketers. Firstly, because it gives credit where credit is not due. You see, average position is based on the highest ranking URL of that website on the SERPs, no matter what the result type is. This means that both your rich results and your classic blue links both track. So, say you're an e-commerce store, and all of a sudden you rank position 1 in Google Search Console reporting. Now, it could be that the Core Web Vitals fairy came and sprinkled over some dust while you were sleeping, and now your category page is magically ranking position 1. Or it could be that Google wanted to test out their 360 feature and you happen to stock that shoe. But the problem is, as soon as that shoe is out of stock, you're out of those rankings. Or say you're a news site and you wake up one morning and you see that now you rank Google Search Console position 1 for latest news, breaking news, news update, and news. I'm sorry, but it's not because you're some SEO savant who magically managed to beat out CNN to rank number 1. It's because your editorial team did a good job that day and got their content into the top stories carousel. But the problem is, you're going to be out of there tomorrow. But these misunderstandings, they're not your fault. Google Search Console causes this confusion. If a site ranks in Google Search Console position 1 on one day with a rich result, and Google Search Console position 10 the next day with the category page, Google Search Console is going to show you an average rank of 5. And how can you be faulted for thinking that what's happened here is that you were in position 5 and you've slipped down to position 10? And so the unfortunate outcome is that you're very likely then to double down on optimizing your category page to try get it back to position 5. So essentially, you're optimizing the wrong page type because you're trying to rank higher on a list that you will never get to the top of, because even if you manage to beat out all of your competitors, you will not ever rank position 0 with a category page. So you need to start shifting your thinking and your strategies to not only focus on category pages, but to also start thinking about your deep content, your products, your listings, your offers, whatever it may be. Because you need to understand, what do I have that is uniquely valuable content that Google cannot replicate, but can curate? And go out and scrub average position and ranking from all of your reporting, because on top of the misinformation this perpetuates about rankings, it's only reported on for search. So Google Discover, Google Maps, Google News, Google Shopping, none of these report on rank. And since these should be making up a significant portion of your organic visibility, it means that they are not viable as a KPI, because it's only reported on for a subset of your visibility. And more importantly, it is blocking you from doing what needs to be done to future-proof your brand. But maybe you're thinking, if all of these surfaces are so important, why aren't I seeing more sessions in Google Analytics? Well, it's because Google Analytics is only telling you half-truths. You see, by default, Google Analytics attributes the vast majority of organic sessions to Google Organic. And this is often equated to mean with clicks on blue links in the search results, but this is not the reality. Visual search queries are ever growing, spurred on by convenient location placements of Google Images and Google Lens. It's available on the search bar, it's in Google Images, Google Photos, Google Assistant. Lens has got its own dedicated app. Plus, if you're a Pixel phone user, then Lens is right there in the camera application. But all of these touch points track under a single line item in Google Analytics of Google Organic, and they're not alone. Free listings added via Google Merchant Center allow inclusion in Google Shopping. But no matter whether you're shopping on the Shopping tab, Shopping site, in Google Images, or with shopping knowledge panels and popular products in Universal Search and on YouTube, all of these touchpoints mostly track under Google Organic. Google Business Profiles power Google Maps along with local packs and business profile panels in Universal Search, all of which track under Google Organic unless you UTM tag them otherwise. Indexable articles that comply with Google News content policies, especially those in combination with Google Publisher Center, are prolifically accessible across the Google ecosystem. So they've got their own tab, site, and app, as well as coveted placements in Universal Search, YouTube, Google Assistant, and Google Discover. So that's 6 different source mediums you could gain visibility on, one of which is Google Organic. And we can't speak about prolific accessibility without re-mentioning Google Discover, which gets the prime spot on the landing page of the Google app. It's also there whenever you open a new tab in Chrome on mobile and when you swipe right on certain Android phones. And again, you'll get a variety of different tracking points, one of which is Google Organic. And even the traditional 10 blue links don't track as you would expect, because of course much of the traffic tracks under Google Organic, but when you're coming from the Android app quick search box, it actually tracks over in direct. And I could go on. But the takeaway here is that when you are looking at Google Organic, you are not only looking at search. And when you're not looking at Google Organic, well, sometimes you are looking at search. And even if you could sort out all of that mess, you still miss a critical piece of the conversion puzzle, because the benefits of optimizing for the Google ecosystem extend beyond the bounds of Google Analytics. It doesn't report on the sales that happen in Google Shopping, or the subscriptions that happen in Google News, or the leads that come from Google Maps, or the ad revenue that you earn on YouTube. Let alone people visiting you directly because they saw your tweet or your TikTok on Google surfaces. And so they click on that content and they build their brand preference for you. Is Google sending engaged users to watch your YouTube videos not valuable? Is Google sending listeners to your podcasts not valuable? Is Google calling you out as a recommended source via voice search, even if it doesn't have then a link anywhere? Is that not valuable? Google Analytics can't report on all of these engagements and brand building activities that you get by optimizing for the wider Google ecosystem. And if you don't do this, your competitors will. But it's okay because you've been driving organic sessions. If you're relying on Google's reporting to define the value of SEO, you're not only severely undervaluing your work, but you're also restricting the reach of your brand. And you're looking at these metrics that will never show you off-site value. We have to acknowledge that this classic SEO funnel, it is irreparably broken. Things like rank and organic sessions, these are not KPIs, they're just metrics. And they're broken ones at that. We have to stop clinging to them because they're safe and they're secure. Users have moved on. Technology has moved on. These faux KPIs, they are leading you astray. Focusing on average position makes you think about ranking category pages in 10 blue links. They're telling you to wait for a keyword search to occur and then try to compete for attention. But by that time, your target audience has already started their journey with one of your competitors, and you are going to find it extremely difficult to break into their consideration set. You need to leave this sort of thinking in the past. It is no longer relevant. It's just SEO nostalgia. You need to think not of ranking, but of visibility, not of web pages, but entities, not of SERPs, but Google surfaces, not of keywords, but topics, not of sessions, but brand awareness and preference with your target audience, no matter if this is achieved on-site or off-site. And this is why it is not your job to optimize a website. It is very much your job to optimize a brand entity. And this is the core of visibility across Google surfaces because Google has broken away from the rigidity of ranking URLs based on page-level signals and the link graph to the flexibility to grant visibility to entities based on their topical authority in the knowledge graph, which understands connections between brands, products, people, places, other things, and facts about them. And when I say knowledge graph, many people think of the knowledge panel that powers the Google SERPs. And yes, the knowledge graph does do this, but the knowledge graph is also the thing that powers all of Google. Google's ability to go beyond the limitations of keyword matching to understand different entities and their relationships to one another. And as such, it plays a strong role in visibility across all Google surfaces because Google doesn't want to give priority placements to brands it doesn't know and trust. But it's not just about supporting visibility of individual content pieces. More and more, we're seeing entity-only features across Google. And if your brand is not in these lists at the start of the user journey, you may be excluded from their consideration set entirely. Now, don't be fooled into thinking because a brand has a lot of indexed URLs and 10,000 backlinks that your brand is an entity in the knowledge graph. Search for your brand name, click on the 3 little dots, and bring up the About This result panel. And if you see only indexing information, this means that you're a familiar face to Google, but you are not known in the knowledge graph. If you see a source description, it tells you that you are a friend who is known and in what context. Now, don't presume when a knowledge panel appears for your brand name that Google understands who you are. Like many friendships in the early days, It might be you have that awkward situation where Google knows they know you, but can't remember in what context. For example, domain is a key property player in the Australian space, and their SERP looks really strong. They've got a knowledge panel, they've got site links, they've got rich results, but Google doesn't know who they are. They don't have an entity in the knowledge graph. And when you force Google to answer who is domain by querying their website URL in the Knowledge Graph API Explorer, it gets them mixed up with their main competitor. And because their knowledge panel is not driven by their brand entity, but it is driven by the parent company entity. And honestly, when you look at their relationship, this is not surprising. Because whenever domain meets Google, they lack clarity and consistency. Let's take a look at their relationship. Google meets domain for the first time, and Google asks them, "What do you do?" And domain replies, "They inspire confidence in life's property decisions," and then proceeds to talk about their parents. The two cross paths again at multiple social gatherings where domain keeps telling Google to find your way home and to download their app, and then keeps talking about their parents while they switch between their full name and their short name. Google's confused, to say the least, so they go over to their good friend Wikipedia and they say, "Who is domain?" And Wikipedia goes, "Sorry, bruh, I only know their parents." To befriend Google, you need to be clear and consistent about who your brand entity is and your relationship to other entities that the two of you have in common. And the more this is corroborated by other sources, the greater confidence Google has that their knowledge about you is accurate. Now, Kalicube estimates that it takes over 30 meaningful touch points before Google will become your brand entity's friend. And there's no reason why you can't orchestrate these encounters. But before you do, make sure you are very clear on who your brand entity is. Now, this sounds ridiculously easy, but I have a challenge for each of you. Next time you're in the office, I want you to grab a pen and a piece of paper and walk to each department and ask them to write down the brand name. Now, some of them will write it as you expect. Some will do it with different capitalization or different spacing, or they'll write the website URL, developers, or they're going to write the legal entity name. And this is just the brand. Just the name. Wait until you try to align on why it's valuable and what it does. But there needs to be this agreement between all stakeholders of the official brand name and the positioning. And that positioning needs to be clear and it needs to be repeated ad nauseam. You need to brand-splain it, but make sure it is meaningful, not some corporate blah claiming that you're the number one in the market or some fluffy tagline. It's baffling how so many companies put so much effort into their meta descriptions, while we're just sitting there and being perfectly fine with all of the junk that's written in our knowledge panels, on our social media profiles, and on our directory listings. Once you're clear on who your brand is, update it in all relevant places and ensure that Google and your audience sees consistent public branding. And start with your About page. This is likely the place where you and Google will first meet. So make sure you have an in-depth conversation about who you are, what you do, who you know, and most importantly, why are you interesting? And all of this communication has to happen through comprehensive schema markup. And then move on beyond the bounds of your site to make sure that you're corroborating this with the bios of your social media profiles and build up your legitimacy and explain who works for you by having profiles on Crunchbase and Glassdoor, and drive home that you are a notable entity by having a presence in Wikidata and Wikipedia, and confirm your location and the trustworthiness of your brand with a Google business profile, and think of expanding your digital presence with apps and podcasts, and be more active in your industry. So submit for awards, or get listings in authoritative industry directories, or start hosting events, and get your CEO interviewed, and publish a market report, or do any brand building activity. And none of this is done for backlinks, but to give you the opportunity to make these meaningful connections with Google and with your audience. And as soon as you see that knowledge panel appear for your brand entity, claim it, optimize it, and then go and click those 3 little dots and confirm that, yes, you have made a friend of Google. Because if Google has a choice between recommending 2 equal pieces of content, and one of those pieces comes from a friend who they know is an expert on that topic, and the other one comes from someone they've heard on in passing, of course, Google is going to choose the source that it trusts. Now, if you've already got your brand entity established, it's time to take it to the next level by making your brand entity adaptable to be the friend that Google wants by their side in all situations. So say Google's going to head to a party. Well, they're going to invite you to come with them because they know that you are master of engaging small talk because you have social posts and snackable videos. And Google wants to know what's on trend. Well, you've got image galleries and long-form videos. And Google wants to level up their career. You've got great advice and can recommend the best conferences to go to. Big purchase decision, you've got the best product recommendations. If Google is looking to chill out, you've got podcasts, light reading, and live video. If Google needs to phone a friend on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, well, they're calling you because you've always got the right answer. Now, I walk my talk. We've had the long-form presentation. Now I'm going to give you the Gen Z snackable TikTok version. Here we go. Traditional SEO has always been website-centric, focused on optimizing text for the website, or technical optimizations for the website, or building links to the website. Social media, video, branding, that was someone else's problem. But Google is moving away from indexing websites towards indexing entities because they're much more flexible. They can be anything, and they can create content in many forms: videos, images, podcasts, social posts, and yes, also text on a website, which may be valuable in full or only in part. So depending on the user's needs, Google will show different combinations of these things and forms, and by doing so, they're taking users on a journey, and they're making these journeys more visual. They're making them more verticalized on their surfaces that do not require a search query. And if you embrace this change and you work to befriend Google with your brand entity, you're going to earn visibility across the entire Google ecosystem, impacting brand awareness and brand preference, marketing KPIs that you should be tracking. To reach your audience and to future-proof your brand and your revenue streams secured, forget what you used to know about SEO. Throw your outdated KPIs out the window. Stop being a faceless website. You all need to become brand-fluencers. I want to give a special shout out to Late Nights and Chocolate. Without them, I couldn't have done this presentation. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want to hear more of my ramblings, and I'm very happy to take any questions.